Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody joining us today. Thank you for attending today's session, which is a UDP technical overview and demo. My name is Mary Owen, and I'm going to be helping out our host today. That is the one and only Stacy Budd, who is one of our sales engineers here in North America. And as we're going through the presentation, we'd love to hear your questions. So please do send them to us using the questions section of your interface, and we will get to those at the end of the webcast. Today's session is also being recorded, so I will send an email out to everyone that registered later this afternoon with a link to that recorded session. So with all of that out of the way, take it away, Stacy.
All right, thank you very much, Mary. And good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to everybody as well out there. Today we're going to be talking about the new release of Arcserve Unified Data Protection version 6.5. We're not going to just go over that. I'm going to go over an overview first off of UDP, right? What it does and those kind of things, and then we'll go into the new features, new functions, and then we'll go into a short demo of some of those features and functions. Not really too in-depth. You know, I don't want to take all of our time up on that. We want to make sure we get to your questions and those kind of things. So please do provide your questions as we're going. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off and talk a little bit about Arcserve. If you're not familiar with Arcserve as a company, we are an independent company. We split off from our parent company 2.5 years ago, maybe longer. I don't know. It's kind of all a blur now. And I can tell you, as somebody that's been part of that journey, right, that it's been a fantastic journey. We 100% dedicated to what we do, which is disaster recovery, backup, and disaster recovery, right? We are a worldwide company. We have a presence all across the globe. A lot of different customers. You all can read the slides here. We get industry recognition kind of across the board as well. Storage awards, you know, and you name it, we've been recognized pretty much everywhere. What we specify in is, you know, backup disaster recovery software. We also offer that available on appliances, and then we also offer a cloud product as well, where you can back up to an Arcserve branded cloud, not only public cloud, but then also our own cloud solution there as well. So we'll be talking about this as we go through. Now, if you're not familiar, you know, with Arcserve, Arcserve's been in the industry for 20+ years, right? I think it's around 25 to 27 years now, but definitely been in the industry for a long time. A lot of times when people hear Arcserve, they think of our traditional Arcserve backup product, which is a file-based backup solution. With Unified Data Protection, what we've moved forward to, we still offer Arcserve Backup and still support that product and are still moving forward with that product as well. But, you know, Arcserve Unified Data Protection, what it brings to the table is more of an image-based backup solution, right? And then big key to Unified Data Protection is not only to unify these features that we're going to talk about today, but also to, when we add a feature, we add something like that, that we are also going through and making sure that we're keeping everything straightforward, simple, usually in 4 steps. That's our goal, so that you can perform most things in 4 steps. And then we are bringing in, you know, enterprise class features into, you know, the mid-market there as well with some of the things that we do. Definitely that small to medium business is really what we target as far as that goes. The product does scale very well. When we look at, again, you know, what we offer, you know, software, hardware, and cloud solutions, and we like to think it as kind of a dial, you know, setting, you know, good, better, and best on what you need to do and how you need to approach your servers. And every customer is going to be different, so if you can just dial that in to where you need it to be, you know, all those features are going to be pretty much available under one product with us under one console. When we look at, I spoke to, the simplicity of the product and that thing, but also speed, efficiency, that is going to be key for us as well. Being able to support both physical and virtual environments, being able to better manage your data with things like deduplication. We'll talk about that in a moment. Be able to support application because there's consistent snapshots. And then, of course, supporting the latest, operating systems, the latest application versions, the latest, virtualization editions that are out there as well, being able to support all of that too. I spoke a little bit about, our ability to scale, and, that's one thing that this product does exceptionally well. We could blow this up into more sites, more locations, cloud locations. It really wouldn't matter as far as our product goes. When you have a primary site, you would have what we call a recovery point server, typically, or an appliance at that location. That's the central, if you will, backup server. You could hang tape devices off of it. You could back up your physical machines, your virtual machines to that server, your workstations to that server. We will handle dedupe at a global level, so we're doing global level inline deduplication as all part of that process. And then if you have remote sites, again, we can put another recovery point server, another appliance at that site, and replicate the data back over to your main site. If you will, we can definitely expand upon this. Like I said, we could have a cloud area here, so we go from remote site to local site up to cloud. We could do that as well, or we could go directly, from the remote site recovery point server up to the cloud. Whatever makes the most sense there. Also, we can scale down from here too. So that's one thing that kind of gets missed is if it's an environment where I don't need I only have one server I'm backing up, it needs to back itself up, or a workstation back itself up, something like that. We can do that as well. You don't necessarily need to have that centralized recovery point server. It just adds a lot of functionality to the product, things like deduplication, replication, which in small environments sometimes that's not key, right? But as we go up, that becomes more and more beneficial, right? So really you don't need to change the way that you interact with the product. Or in a lot of cases, even how the product's sold, right? So we scale from up to very complex environments. So we do have a unified management console. That console will allow you to go in and do everything from, managing and importing your machines, managing your backups, doing your recovery. You can pretty much do everything from this console. So you don't have to step out of that. In fact, I'll take it one further. Within the console, you'll probably do 90% of everything you want to do in one area of the console. So we don't want you even switching tabs, right? So you'll primarily be in one location whenever you work within that console. We think of our we don't have backup jobs, we have backup plans, right? That may be, hey, it's just a term for you, but we think of it kind of like, hey, you make a plan to go on vacation, right? And then when you're on that vacation, you add different tasks that you want to do, right, to that. And that's kind of the same approach that we take, right? So we create a backup plan, first off. That plan could be, host-based, agentless, to back up my virtual machines, so an agentless backup on VMware and Hyper-V. On my, physical machines or workstations, I want to do an agent-based backup. Then my task could be, let's replicate the data from, one location to another location or up to cloud. Let's copy it over to tape if we want to do that. Let's do some DR, like virtual standby, where we present the backup as a virtual machine and have it for failover, automatic failover, those kind of things. There's other tasks that we can add. Those are just a few that I can think of off the top of my head. And the idea of the task, is we create our plans, and then these tasks trigger off of that, and they're automatic on that as well. The recovery point server, if you will, think of this as your centralized, backup server, if you will. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it a little bit there. It does a lot more than that. It handles the deduplication processes. It handles the replication. It does, a lot of other capabilities. Offloads some of the processes from the client machines onto the centralized server, right? So this recovery point server has a big role within our product. In fact, we have some tools to help you make sure that this gets deployed correctly. And what I mean is enough memory, enough resources in there based on your environment. So it's not specific to, I mean, it is specific to each customer, each environment, each customer's needs. So memory requirements, things like that are going to change for each and every customer out there. Instead of telling everybody, hey, you need this amount of memory, we really take a look at what the backups are going to be, what the retention is going to be. Are you going to dedupe the data? You know, how much data you're dealing with? All of those kind of things. So definitely, definitely some steps we take within this to make sure that it gets deployed out correctly with enough resources, and we plan that forward for like 3 years. It's kind of the same thing that we do with our appliance rollouts there too. We do the same kind of process where we kind of plan, you know, going forward 3 years with those. Now, one of the things that we do include with this, and we may have a slide on this in a minute, and if we do, I'll kind of speak about it here instead, but one of the things that we do support is, you know, deduplication, and we do that at the global level, right? I mentioned that this gets offloaded to the recovery point server. Those deduplication block sizes range from 4K up to 32K block sizes. So, you know, not only is that going to, you know, be source side, where it's at the client side, reducing the bandwidth that we need to send, you know, data we send across the bandwidth, we also do it globally so that we're going to give better deduplication ratios, look at other nodes, other jobs, other machines that may be backing up to the site, other sites, right? So if there's two common things that I hear from customers, it's our data reduction when we're writing to storage, and it's our speed of our backups. Those are the two things that I hear from customers all the time. So definitely is two big key features within the product. When we look at the speed, really what I equate to the speed is, you know what, that we can take and we can move away from a traditional backup where you're doing full backups at the end of the week. I was speaking to a customer, it's probably 3 weeks ago now, but their environment, you know, they were backing up 3 days a week, and the reason why they were backing up 3 days a week is because their full backup was taking 4 days. Okay, so quite a bit of data that they're building there, you know, and unfortunately, if they have some type of failure, when are they going to recover from? You know, it could be pretty far back because of the nature of the amount of data that they were dealing with. You implement something like UDP that can use infinite incrementals, which is what we see here in the middle, right? We start with a full backup, we build incrementals on top of that, and if you go to any of these incrementals and view them, what you get presented out as a user would be a, if you will, it would be a full backup. You wouldn't see any difference that it was an incremental. It'd be treated just like it was a full. Now, if we were doing this to tape, what would you have to do? You'd have to load multiple tapes and all of that as well. So when you go to disk, you don't have that that hit, right, of having to load multiple tapes, and it's a lot more efficient when going to disk to do infinite incrementals. The other side of things too is, you know, when we're doing infinite incrementals, is taking a look at not only things that we can do from that perspective, but then we can also do things like turn off cataloging, you know, this merge process where we keep you at retention, we can schedule that. So we do some other things to make those backups, you know, a lot quicker if that's your requirement to have faster backups. And in some cases, what we do is we push those over to the restore side. So maybe the restore may take a little bit longer. But really, again, you can fine-tune this on what you need, right? Larger block sizes, you know, cataloging during backup instead of during restore. All these are things that you can do fairly easy with the click of a button, you know, to what makes it, you know, most beneficial to your environment and what your needs are. Maybe individual servers might have different requirements as well. So when we talk about deduplication and global deduplication, you can see here that we are, you know, starting at that source side deduplication that is occurring here at the client machines. Then we send the hash files that get generated. We send those up to the recovery point server. So we're not sending any data across the wire yet. We're sending just the hash file that gets generated. And that hash file is then compared globally against this data store that we're backing up to at the recovery point server. And that storage could be NAS, SAN, direct attached storage, an iSCSI target, I mean, it could be a share, it could be any number of things, right, as far as that goes. But we're going to do that comparison, and then once we've decided from the recovery point server and globally what's unique, we're going to go back to the client server and say, you know what, out of that data, here's what we find to be truly unique. Only send that data to the recovery point server. Now, when we look at this remote site, right, we have application servers here. They're backing up to their own recovery point server. The recovery point server replicates over to the primary site, and it does that same process. So instead of sending the data across the wire, it's going to send what it thinks is unique. There's going to be a global deduplication process that occurs at the primary site on that recovery point server, and it's going to respond back, you know, hey, here's only the true unique data I want. What's key there is when I go off to another site, like here, like for instance an MSP site or a cloud location, and there's a recovery point server up there, we're going to do the same process. And so our bandwidth that goes across the WAN is going to be greatly reduced in most cases, because we're not going to be sending the same amount of data that you typically send in those instances when you have a recovery point server up at the cloud, like in the Arcserve cloud, or even Amazon and Azure. You could deploy servers up there if you want to do that as well. You can go to dumb storage. You can move just files up to cloud, things like that. But if you want it to be deduplicated, you're going to have a recovery point server up in that location. I alluded to this a moment ago, but for VMware and Hyper-V, we'll be able to do a agentless backup in most cases. There's a few exceptions to every rule, but typically, you know, we're going to give you the ability to do agentless backups in these environments. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't support things like KVM or Zen server. We would support those agent-based, right? We would treat them like they're physical machines. They'd be licensed like they're virtual machines, but we would treat them like they're physical machines. So we can even support other hypervisors in case you have them in your environment. It's just, you know, we do it a little bit different on those. So agentless on VMware and Hyper-V, and in most cases, you know, agentless as far as that goes. The key here too, not only, you know, can we do this agentless support, but when you back up a virtual machine, a physical machine, a Linux machine, a Windows machine, your experience from backup to recovery to disaster recovery should be the same, right? We don't step out of the console for that. There may be one or two extra little options that you do here and there, but for the most part, it's going to look exactly the same. So you don't need to train yourself on how to use a different console. It's all going to be within the same console, within the same area, and the same management as far as that goes. When we look at the, you know, virtual standby capability, which could be local, right? So, or it could be remote, right? What virtual standby does is it gives you the capability to go one step further, and we convert the backup into a virtual machine. Okay, so and this could be used to go P2V. So if you have physical machines and you're rolling out a virtual environment, you could use virtual standby. You take and you back up the machine, you use virtual standby to convert it into a virtual machine, you turn off the physical machine, you turn on your virtual machine, and you've just done a P2V conversion as far as that goes. So I mean, you could use it in that instance. As a disaster recovery process, you can set up monitoring so it'll monitor the source machine, and when that source machine goes down, it can either automatically or manually bring up that virtual standby machine, right? And it's an actual, you know, it's created on the hypervisor, right? So whatever data store you're pointing out to there, and you know, you do have that, you know, if you will, you do have that third set of data, but it is also going to give you the best performance because an actual machine is created in order to do that, right? Now, not everybody wants to have a third copy of their data, right? So for that, we have what's called instant VM, instant virtual machine. This is where we use emulation. So we present out to a hypervisor, right, that backup is a virtual machine, and then can perform off of that. Instant virtual machine is nice because it gives you more flexibility, right? I can go to any of my backups as long as I backed up the entire machine, system state and all those kind of things, and present it out and make it run just like it's a virtual machine. an actual machine running. You're going to lose some performance, right, because we don't actually have a machine created. You're not going to have the storage hit that you would have with virtual standby. You're not going to have the automated testing. It's more of a reactive kind of approach as far as that goes. But it does give you a lot of other options. Maybe you get hit by ransomware, right, unfortunately, and your virtual standby was performed after you got infected, right, but before it was caught. So then you can always use instant VM to come from a earlier backup, right? And if you want to make this machine permanent, there are a number of ways to do that, including vMotion, live migration. Those are tools from VMware and Hyper-V. And then also you could back up the machine, deploy it out, do a restore. There's a number of things that you could do to make that machine permanent in case that you need to do that. You could even bring it up on a different network with a different host name. So you have a lot of options when it comes to the instant VM and what it does for you. In most cases, you get access to both, right? So you get to kind of pick and choose what's best for the situation that you're in as far as that goes. Now, this was referenced on the previous slide, but I didn't speak about it because I wanted to wait till I talked about instant VM. This process could be done both locally or remotely. And what I mean by remotely, maybe you have a off-site location that you're replicating your backups over to, and you perform that DR capability off-site, right, so that you're not spinning it up on-site. Maybe you have power issues. Maybe you're in California and you have rolling brownouts, right, something like that. Or maybe, I'm in Florida, we get hit with a storm, right, a hurricane, something like that. Or the Midwest, you have tornadoes, right? Or my favorite, probably most common disaster is somebody like myself goes walking through a server room and trips over a cord and unplugs it, right? Not necessarily, unplugs it from the wall, but maybe, rips it out of the back of the rack, right? So it's going to take a little while to get somebody in there to fix it, right? So disasters don't always have to be, the worst case scenario. It could be human error. Somebody goes in and I worked at a company one time, we'd give tours of our data center, and sometimes it was little kids, and you're always afraid that a little kid's going to walk up and push a button or something, right? So it could be any number of reasons why you might have to fail over in the disaster recovery option there too. I do see a number of questions in the queue. Keep them coming. We're not going to address the questions until the end. I'll save some time then, but I do see some filling up there, so make sure that you keep them coming. Instant BMR, this is specific to Linux, and it's the only feature that isn't available to both Windows and Linux in our tool. This is where we take and we use live CD to boot up the machine that you're going to be restoring. So this is typically going to be a physical machine, and then we're going to take on top of that, and the console is going to be watching for that MAC address or that IP to come online, and as soon as it does, it starts pushing out the restore and re-imaging that machine, right? On top of it, let's say I'm a user and I need to start using that server, where I'm going to be able, as a user, go through and just start using it. And what we're going to do on the back end is we're going to see that they make a request, and we're going to go fetch that data and put it on server for them. So it gives you not only the remote recovery of physical machines from the console, but then also giving you the capability for people to actually access it before the image is done, right? So faster restore from that perspective as well. And that today is on Linux only, but we do hope to see that move over to the Windows platform. That would be pretty nice. Now on top of that, right, so we've got our backups. Maybe I'm performing them every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, every hour, twice a day, 3 times a day, once a day, weekly, monthly, whatever I'm doing, right? But even with those aggressive backups, right, there's some servers that are just critical and they need constant protection of the data. They need the data replicated over to an offline machine. That's where a full system high availability comes in place. So being able to do continuous data replication, either on-site or off-site, to an offline VM, ready to come online, ready to take the place of the source machine in case that goes down, automated DR testing, right? we'll bring up that machine on a different network, make sure, services start, make sure, any scripts you want to run against it can happen. And this isn't a yearly test. This isn't a 6-month test. It could be if you wanted it to be. It could be a daily test if you want it to be. It's as frequently as you want to schedule it, right? So you can be very, very granular as far as that goes. Doesn't mean you don't back up these machines, right? You'd still probably run a backup for historical restores, but you have the high availability for the, hey, my server crashed, I need to bring up a new one, and I need to bring it up in minutes, right? I need to bring it up super quick, and I'm not restoring from, my recovery point objective of 30 minutes, an hour, or whatever it might be, right? I'm instead recovering from the latest data that was replicated over on a continuous basis. Now, assured recovery, when tied to that full system high availability, and we got to be careful here because we have a new assured recovery I'm going to talk about as well. Assured recovery gives you the ability to test that DR, right? Bring it up in that separate network. Bring it up in a way that you can do that automated testing without impacting your production. And by the way, when you do that failover, we're going to automatically reroute the users to the standby machine too, right? And that could be on-site, it could be off-site. So you're going to have that capability too. When we look at the unified reporting within the product, being able to see, and I got to see, we have some new reports too, so I should probably update the pictures on these, but I'm definitely being able to see, your backup status, RTO reports, RPO reports, data trending reports, detailed logs, and then on top of everything else, when it comes to the reporting, we have an open schema to our database, so we'll share that schema with you. So if there's any type of information that you do not see that's listed here, you can also pull that from the SQL or SQL Express that you're using as that backend server. Now, I struggled a little bit with where to put in the conversation with our appliances, because really it doesn't change any of the communication about what I'm talking about right now. Features and functions and everything that I talked about and everything I'm about to talk about with 6.5, it's all within the product, right? So when we look at this, right, whether it's a software deployment or an appliance deployment, we're going to give you the same capabilities of that. Of course, with an appliance, you have one vendor to pick up and talk to in case you have any problems or anything like that. We do scale all the way from 4 terabytes up to 80 terabyte appliances. We can add shelves to these appliances to give you, more storage. We can add memory to these appliances in case you want to do on-memory DR, things like that, as on-appliance DR capabilities. And we're about to roll out the ability to do filled expansions to these as well. So you'll see that this calendar year where you can do that too. So even if you go with, like, let's say an 8300 with 16 terabytes of storage, or an 8200 with 8 terabytes of storage, you will be able to add shelves to that down the road. And of course, we have maintenance programs, different varying maintenance programs that give you the ability to, when those programs are up, to either upgrade or refresh your appliances, things like that as well. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that, hey, we do have these appliances out there, very popular, being well received as far as that goes. In fact, we just not long ago had a refresh to the 8000 series, simplified it, but also gave more expandability, larger appliances out there as well. Now, talking to the Unified Data Protection 6.5 specifically, right? We're going to talk about some of the marquee features. We did roll out the HP 3PAR support within this release and the nimble storage support, right, as far as that goes. So for hardware-based snapshots, now we support NetApp, Nimble, and HP 3PAR. My experience is about every 6 months, we've pretty much rolled out support for a new hardware vendor, right, as far as that goes. I can't commit that in 6 months we'll have another vendor on here. I know that there's several that are roadmapped out, and we're continuing to work with them. So definitely as we add one, then we're done with them. We go on to the next one as far as that goes. Office 365 Exchange support, so being able to back up Exchange online and bring it back on premise, right? And you're really backing up the mailboxes at this point, so we've added that capability, as well as the ability to back up SIFs, right? So one of the things is I can't tell you how many calls I've been on where customers have wanted to back up shares. So definitely we've added that capability to the product as well, so you don't have to step outside of the UDP product in order to back that up. So we've added that support. Being able to, sometimes when we're talking to a customer, they'll say, I have, 2 terabytes of data, I have 4 terabytes of data, whatever it might be, right? 250 terabytes of data. But really, until we really get down into it, we don't understand that there's a big block of that data that's on a share, right? So now being able to support that, that's kind of a key there as well for us. Of course, with new certifications on 2016 on vSphere 6.5, new Red Hat and Linux versions supported, as well as Oracle Unbreakable kernel, right? So if you're running that, we now support that there as well. When we look at our cloud integration, in the past we could do disaster recovery in the cloud only to the Arcserve cloud, right? So we've added that capability up to Amazon AWS, hopefully coming soon to Azure, or I shouldn't say soon, but hopefully coming to Azure. I'm not sure where that is on the roadmap, but I'm hoping to see that there as well. But in AWS, we've added quite a bit of capabilities. Before, if I wanted to send data up to, for instance, S3, I could only send files up there. I couldn't send an entire recovery point, an entire backup up there. Well, now you can do that, right? If I want to have disaster recovery in the cloud, then I need to be looking at an EC2 instance, right? So if I want to be able to do that in the cloud. So there are some instances where we support differently depending on, the environment up there, but definitely added much capability around Amazon with this release too. When we look at, and this is going to be key too, in fact, this is some of my favorite things right here, the automated testing for Windows and Linux, that's the assured recovery. This is a task now, so we can, in the background, run that instant VM, wait for scripts to run, those kind of things, bring it back down, give you a pass-fail on that as well. So being able to make sure that all that happens. So you don't just get a screenshot of a login screen, right? You can actually run scripts. You can, take it a little bit further as far as that goes, and that can all be automated. Also, the SLA reports that we've added, where you can set up, hey, I want to be able to perform, virtual machine restores in an hour. I want to perform file level restores in 5 minutes, right, or something like that. You set the SLAs, and then we'll report on them whether or not you're hitting those SLAs to kind of give you that information, as well as RPO reports, right? So here's the age of my oldest recovery points, my newest recovery points. Here's our machines that are not being backed up. All those kind of things on top of it too. The ability to go in and licensing, data distribution, again, just more reports here that are very, very key here to kind of help you as you use the product there too. When we look at the specific kind of things here, I highlighted a few of them and I added them to this deck. So the Office 365 emails, bringing that data back from Office 365 and being able to restore emails, calendars, contacts, tasks, notes, and so on, right? Being able to restore all of those. A lot of people are happy with the backup that occurs up in 365. We get a lot of customers that want to be able to, from various reasons, right, want to be able to back up that data back to on-prem. So we definitely support that as well, being able to do that. In some cases, they want to have a longer retention period than what's provided up in 365. In some cases, I get some customers that just say, hey, I don't want to trust Microsoft with all my data. I want to bring it back and have a copy here too. So, we do get those customers too. You would back up to a non-deduplicated data store, but here's the nice thing, is you can replicate that then to a deduplicated data store. And then that data can be deduplicated there too. So you do have that option. Right. Just kind of what that looks like, backing up the data to the primary site. You could even replicate it to a remote site if you wanted to do that too there. When we look at, backing up of UNC paths and shares, I kind of talked about the importance of this. With a lot of cases, where we have customers that have data out on NASs or, file shares out on servers, whatever it might be, being able to back that up to the recovery point server, and again, for now, to a non-deduplicated data store, and then replicate it to a deduplicated data store if you want to do that then. We do hope to see that added to a deduplicated data store, directly in the future. But for this release, it's to non, but then we can send it. Maybe you keep a one-day retention on that non-deduplicated data store, and and right away you do that replication within the plan to a deduplicated data store. Very, very easy to set up. Also, with this version, the ability to to add resource pools, right, and clusters, those kind of things, so that when you are backing up, in VMware, you're backing up these resource pools. If you create a machine and throw it in that resource pool, we can automatically start backing up that machine, right? Because we're backing up the resource pool. Of course, while let's say there's machines in that resource pool that you don't want to back up, you can flag them not to be backed up as well. So it's not an all or nothing, but any new machines that you would add would be backed up, and then you could go in and flag them not to be backed up if you wanted to do that for some reason. The assured recovery testing and what that looks like. So we would do our backup, or physical or virtual machines. We would have those backed up onto our data, and then as part of that program, you're going to set an assured recovery schedule, and it might be the latest backup, something like that. And it'll go and it'll mount those with Instant VM, run those tests that you put in there, validate the integrity of the data, bring it back down, give you a pass-fail as far as that goes. So very, very nice feature within the product. Glad we can automate that. The hardware snapshot piece, I kind of want to just take a moment and say, yes, we support HP, Nimble, NetApp, and all that, but how simple is this? It couldn't be simpler, right? You add this storage array, right, which if you add it to the console instead of like we have it right here within the plan, you don't even have this option, right? It's already created, it's already there. So when you're in the plan, you're creating the plan, all you do is click the button to use hardware snapshots whenever possible. Now, within, when you add those storage arrays, what are we going to connect to? We're going to connect to IP addresses. You're going to give us the permissions. In some cases, you might have multiple IP addresses that you do, like a management port and then a data port or something like that. So, I mean, it's just going to be, you're going to tell us what the vendor is, and then it's going to be kind of just a screen that opens up, and you just fill up. Here's my management IP. Here's my data IP. Here's my user, my password, and then you never have to do that again. It's very, very straightforward. Now we are going to leverage tools within those vendors, right? So in order to do that, I was just looking at the HP one, so it's on top of my mind here, but it's like the HP RMC tool, right? So as far as that goes. So in some cases, you do have to make sure you have those tools available to you from the vendor as well. Copy recovery points, up to cloud. So I have a whole backup that I want to send up to my cloud location, my S3, cloud location. So very straightforward doing that as well. All right, so I kind of rushed those last two slides only because I did want to spend some time looking at the tool, and then also leave some time at the end here to talk about a few other things and to answer questions. So I've gone ahead and I've moved my server over to the screen so that we can take a look at my instance of UDP here. I've already logged in. It's a browser-based tool, so I'm logged in via IE in this case, but IE, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, we support all those. Right. This is just giving, this is our dashboard, is giving us a quick overview. We see here that all my backups are successful, but I do have some machines, 4 machines here, that haven't been backed up, right? And if I had failures, I could click on it. It would take me directly into those so I could see what's going on with those. I also see what's going on with my storage, so I can see, you know, how much restorable data I have, how much raw data that there is, and then how much actual data stores that I'm taking up on my storage is there too. And that's our bottom one here. That's one that we're usually the most concerned about, because that's when we're worried about if we're going to be running out of room, anything like that. So the assured recovery test. Let's see if I can move this. There we go. And I know that wasn't, you know, it doesn't show up on your screen, but it shows up on my screen. It's a little window there. So the assured recovery test, right? So I can set this. It'll tell me if I'm meeting it, not meeting those tests. So this is actually an SLA report that I've created. I haven't done any bare metal restores or virtual machine recovery, so nothing to report on there yet. You see here that I have a number of machines that haven't been tested. I have met it on file level restores and those kind of things. This is more, these 4, not the assured recovery test, but these 4 are more, you're going to test these things, and you should always be testing, right? So you have an idea how long does it take, what's the process, let's document that, you know. But then also you can see, am I hitting, you know, the recovery times that I need to have. Maybe I need to look at virtualizing some of my physical machines so I don't have to do a bare metal restore. I can do a virtual machine recovery, right? And maybe that gives you the ammunition to go to your management and say, you know what, we need to virtualize, or we need a bigger backbone in our environment. You know, find out where the bottlenecks are, right? And you can address those. But definitely you can start to see those. Now the assured recovery one, that's the automated one, right? So that's the only one out of this group that you wouldn't manually run, right? It automatically runs, and you set a time limit. I don't remember what mine was. It was pretty quick, and it tells you if you're meeting or not meeting those. And again, we can go into those and kind of take a look at it a little bit more detail. And then the RPO report. You know, how many recovery points do I have? What's the age of my oldest and my newest recovery points? Here I have machines that are, you know, never been backed up, those kind of things as well, so you can address all those too. I mentioned that, you know, the majority of what you do in UDP is going to be in one console, so that, or is going to be in one tab in the console, right? And that's going to be the resources tab. So within the resources tab, we're going to keep you here. We're going to go in. These are where we're going to add nodes that we want to protect. This is where we're going to create our backup plans. We're going to define, you know, things like our cloud accounts if we're going to go up to cloud, where we're going to define our storage arrays, our SLA profiles. We'll go into SLA profiles real quick. I already have one created here. So when we go into this, you know, we name our profile, our assured recovery test, how quickly can I bring that up. So that assured recovery test, you see we had one that didn't meet the SLA. Well, what didn't it meet? Well, I have a 15-minute SLA to bring up a server. So one of it hit it, no problem. I know that machine's small. It's just basically an OS on there, you know, and I know it takes about 4 minutes, right? So we can start hitting these requirements so that we can not only get the pass-fail, but we can see, are they happening within the time frame that we need them to happen on, right? So one is going to report to me pass-fail. The SLA reports are going to report to me on whether or not we're hitting our time frames that we're specifying. And these you can set. You know, so many minutes, so many hours, so many days, you know, and you set that parameters. What machines do I want to have in this particular profile? Now, should I have one profile or should I have multiple profiles? The larger the company, probably the more tiered kind of servers they're going to have, right? So, you know, they may want, you know, tier 1 servers to have a certain profile, tier 2 servers to have a different profiles, so they can create their own profiles for those different types of servers that they have as far as that goes, those tiered servers too. If we go into our plans, I'm going to go into my backup plan here. I'm not going to be creating any plans because, again, I don't want to spend too much time on here. I just want to show you some of the new things. So, like, for instance, Office 365 backup. We'll show you that real quick. It's fairly straightforward. My source, I can only back up my own mailbox. because I'm not an admin at my company, right? But of course, the administrator would be able to back up, all the mailboxes, all those kind of things as well. We can select folders to exclude from that backup. My destination is going to be a local data store that I have, non-deduplicated. My schedule of when I want to run that backup, how long do I want to retain those? I'm not retaining a lot here on that non-deduplicated. And then, of course, notifications, those kind of things, I don't have any turned on in this environment. Scripts we want to run, all of that. But here's that replication task. So, just replicate. So we add a task as the process, and then you choose, the replicate task. You choose your destination, which is my deduplicated data store. My schedule is continuous, right, is blank, but I could put in a replication schedule, throttling, all of that there as well. I have a longer retention on this data store, and then, of course, notifications and all of that as well. Whenever you need to add a task, you just select Add a Task on the left, and you go in and you have the list of what you want to be able to do here in this case. So, in this case, I could go through and I could replicate to another location if I needed to, or copy to tape in case I needed to have that off, that off, offline is the word I'm trying to think of, right, as far as that goes. Same thing with UNC shares and backing up shares, right? So there's a specific backup plan to back up UNC shares. We go in, we define our share. We can do exclusions if I want to exclude files from that share to be backed up. Our destination, same thing, is going to be to a non-deduplicated data store. My schedule to do that. We're cataloging because probably, if you back up a share, there's probably a lot of data on there, so this will speed up the restore process. And on all of these, I'm just doing daily backups, right? But we could do weeklies, monthlies, we could do throughout the day there too. And then your advanced tabs. Now we can go in and we can say, okay, let's go ahead now and let's replicate this to my deduplicated data store. And let's do continuous, and I don't know, let's put it for 10 days, right, as far as that goes, something like that. And go ahead and do I want any notifications, anything like that. And then I can save that, and it'll go ahead and push that out. So that's how easy it is to add that task. Very, very straightforward. Trying to think if there's any other specific tasks, that come to mind. I usually demo Instant VM on these calls, but I thought what I would do today is just go over, some of those new features and things like that as well. If you look at the storage arrays, I did speak to this before. We add on the presentation, but to see it actually in the product, I just went to storage arrays, clicked Add a Storage Array. We choose our storage vendor, like HP. And then there's the IP, the credentials, the protocol that we want to use in the port, right? So you'll notice each one of these will be a little bit different, right? NetApp has standalone cluster and vFiler support. And as you change these, right, we may update, different things that we need as far as that goes. But it's always going to be around IPs. It's always going to be around credentials and then the ports that you use to communicate. So that's all going to be pretty much the same. Cloud accounts, this is where you would go in and you could add a cloud account. So what's my service? For instance, Amazon S3, we would name it, and then we put up our bucket, and those kind of things that we're going up to that if I want to go to that. Same thing if I want to go to EC2, we're going to have some information in here too for that. Right, so this will be all information that they provide to you, right? Access keys, secret access keys, that's all stuff that you get from your cloud vendor as far as that goes. And then our reports, right? If we take one last look real quick at that and we look at those service level agreement reports, right? Here's my recovery point objective report, right? So we can see that it's all interactive. I can, go through and I can specify nodes and groups of machines and day ranges, things like that I want to see there. Same thing for the recovery time objective, is I can drill down into that as well based on those things. We can, print these, we can have them emailed out. We have all that capability there too. So that's the SLA agreement reports. If you're familiar with the UDP in the past, you'll remember the managed capacity report. Not that it's a big deal, but I mean, it used to be like a big circle. Now we just have a bar graph that shows you here's how much that you're using as far as that goes. We break it down to, per server there as well, so you can see how much raw data you're backing up on each server, so you can get that information too. So I don't know why, but this was, to me, I mean, it was a nice change then. That kind of was, I don't want to call it a pie chart, it was just a big circle, and it was confusing to some folks out there as far as that goes. Everything else here, has not really changed much. Instant VM is still the same process. It's a 4-step process. So if I went into a machine and said, you know what, let's perform Instant VM, we would be presented with that same one. So we right-click on a machine, and we go in, create an Instant VM, and then I have those 4 steps to create and do that, right? So what is the backup I want to restore from? What's my credentials? Hopefully I didn't mistype it. What's my virtual environment? What's the resources I want to give the machine? Where's my recovery server? Those kind of things. I'm not going to go in, like I said, I want to leave like the last 10 minutes here, or even less now to answer questions. So let's go ahead and pop back over. I did have a couple more slides. Just a summary slide. What's added and new to UDP 6.5, the Exchange Online support, the UNC BATH support, certifications and compatibility for new OSs, new virtual instances, assured recovery, SLA reporting, things like that as well. This is kind of a best practices for virtualization, not virtualization, but to protect yourself against ransomware. Always worth mentioning, right? Always protect your source machine. Always have, one copy of your data offline, right, so that it can't get infected or anything like that. All that too. So make sure you follow those rules of 3-2-1 rules and all those as well, right? Cannot emphasize that enough. That 3-2-1 rule. It's kind of an industry standard kind of thing as far as that goes. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of the questions that are out there. And then we'll wrap it up. But like I said, I do want to take a few minutes to make sure I answer your questions. So the first question from Dwayne Hartman is, Agentless still does brick level for Exchange and Active Directory? Absolutely, still does. Now, Active Directory, we're going to need an agent on that machine, so we wouldn't do an agentless backup for an Active Directory server. Even if it is virtual, I'd still want you to put an agent on there to perform the agentless backup, so you can get granular restore of not only objects but attributes. So if you will, an object could be like the user's group, right, in an Active Directory. I don't think group is the right term there, the user's object. And then an attribute could be like member of within that, right? So you can be very granular on what you restore. And you can restore top level too. You can do both authoritative, non-authoritative restores. There's processes in place to do that too. So hope that answers your question there, Dwayne. From Brian Mitchell, for agentless backup, does Arcserve UDP support Hyper-V Servers 216? Hyper-V 2016, I believe, is supported with this release. I don't think that we mentioned it specifically, right, but I think that we do support it, right, so as far as that goes. We did roll out support for 2016 with this release, and we do support Hyper-V. So I haven't seen anything from any of the communications that we don't support it, but I haven't specifically looked at it either. So Brian will do some follow-up there for you too to make sure it is. A follow-up question from Brian, will instant BMR be supported for physical machines running Windows Server? Today, instant BMR support on Linux systems only. So I think I answered that as I was going. It's a feature I hope to see come over to the Windows platform. The sooner the better, okay? But yeah, today it's not, but it is roadmapped out to move over to the Windows side of things. from Michael Rodriguez. He had a question that was, I saw this when it came in. He had a question around the appliances on the 81 and 8200 appliances. There's max 1 unit of this upgrade, right? So that's referring to, you know, there's one additional drive shelf that can fit in there. So for instance, I believe the 8100 is 4 or 6 terabytes. So you'll be able to upgrade it one time and put a 2 terabyte drive tray in there, basically. So if you start out with 4 terabytes, you can move up to the 6 terabytes. If I have somebody, I'm talking to them, and they're already at 6 terabytes, I try to talk to them about the 8 terabyte appliance. It's a little bit more money, but they're at the bottom range of that appliance, and they have much more top end that they can go to, right, as far as that goes. In some cases, you know, budget rules all. We all know that. And then in other cases, you know what, it may make sense, you know, from you know, I've talked to companies that, you know, their data isn't growing very much, right? So it may make sense to go ahead and purchase the 6 terabyte appliances. Another question from Brian Mitchell. Can you further discuss how Assured Recovery automates backup verification for multi-system recovery tasks? Okay. So I hope I went through this one because I went through it in a couple places there, but you know, this is what we take when we use Instant Virtual Machine to bring up that in the background, automated, and I meant to show you this, and I don't think I did in the demo, where we can automate that process at the end where I was doing Instant Virtual Machine, that 4-step process, we can automate that with one of our backups, right? And then we can, you know, as part of that goes, there is a place, and you know what we can do is I can show you real quick because it's something worth seeing. I mean, I don't want to just talk to you about it. Let's definitely take a look at it here real quick. If we go into one of our backup plans, right, and I'm sure it would have been great if I'd have labeled it. I think this one is labeled. So not only am I doing a virtual standby, I'm doing a lot of things on this. I'm backing up an agent-based machine, I'm replicating it, I'm performing a virtual standby, and then I added a assured recovery test to it. And when we look at that assured recovery test, what we're going to have is we're going to have, you know, the capabilities as we go through and go into our test settings. I'm just testing my latest recovery points here. And when we go through, we can put in, you know, the virtual environment that we're going to go into. We're going to put in our schedule. And then on the advanced tab, we're going to have an option to put in scripts, custom commands that we want to run there as well. So there'll be a proxy server that you define, and you can run commands from that proxy server against it. So that's where that piece is going to relay. So kind of a quick, you know, 10-second overview of that, but I hope that kind of just gave you enough info to, you know, delve into it a little bit deeper. Give us a call, request a demo. You know, we can definitely spend a lot more time around that as well. Question from Maravik Roka. I hope I said your name right. Any support for Exchange on-premise, granular restore, and SharePoint granular restore? So twofold question here. Exchange on-prem, absolutely. We can restore files or emails, attachments, calendar items, tasks, pretty much anything out of on-prem Exchange that we can restore. SharePoint, you know, today we have a number of ways we support SharePoint. Number one, we can back up an entire SharePoint server, the SQL servers, all of that, and we do have methods to go in and to restore. It's not necessarily granular restore, one-click kind of granular restore with UDP. Now we also can give you a license that includes Arcserve Backup, which does have a SharePoint agent and can do granular restore of that. And we also have roadmapped out to add the granularity, the granular restore like we do on Exchange, but to the SharePoint and SharePoint farms too. So that's on our roadmap too to do that. So it is hopefully coming, but today we have a couple of ways that we do that. Okay. Okay, next question, unfortunately, was from Sam, and I see that he's left, but it was a question around the appliances and if the data can be encrypted on the appliances. What I'm going to say with our encryption is the encryption is in motion and at rest. All right, so definitely that's something good for everybody to know, that our data is in motion and at rest. A question about if you're not using AWS or Azure, can you select yourself as a cloud provider as long as you have a RPS? Absolutely, and we have a ton of customers. Maybe they're an MSP and they do copy to remotely managed RPS, right? So they do something like that as well, and that was really how we first deployed the product. Helps out with MSPs and those kind of things too. So absolutely can do that. All right, question around pricing. So Michael will definitely get back to you on that one. We'll kind of take that offline a little bit here. And then also, if customer is already in Amazon Cloud and wants to have Arcserve Backup, do we remote deploy RPS in Amazon Cloud for the customer so we can perform instant restores right in Amazon Cloud? Absolutely, right? And that's how that would be done, right? So if they're in EC2, and we want to put a recovery point server in there, we could definitely go that route too. So, great question. I think I'm pretty close to our time limit there. How are we doing, Mary?
Yep, you are right on time. So if you're all done, I will say thank you, Stacy, for that great presentation. The demo was awesome, and for answering all of those questions. We got through a lot of information today. So as a reminder, I'll be sending out a recording of this presentation shortly, so keep an eye out for that in your email. And if you have any additional questions for us, please feel free to reach out at www.arcserve.com. You can download a trial, you can call us directly, or you can chat online with one of our reps. Thank you again for spending this time with us, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.